The following program will make you want to grow things and experience new and wonderful dreams about your plants, garden, and garden design. Listener participation is always strongly advised. Good evening and welcome to Down the Garden Path with your hosts Joanne Shaw and Matthew Dressing, right here on Reality Radio 101. To get on board, send us an email right now. Our email address is instudio101@gmail.com. And now, right to your hosts of Down the Garden Path, Joanne Shaw and Matthew Dressing.
Thank you, and welcome everyone to Down the Garden Path, where we discuss down-to-earth tips and advice for your plants, gardens, and landscapes. As landscape designers and gardeners, we think it is important and possible to have great gardens that are low maintenance, and we want to help you make it happen. Hello there, I am Joanne Shaw, landscape designer and owner of Down to Earth Landscape Design. I've been designing beautiful gardens and landscapes for homeowners east of Toronto for over a decade. And with me across Zoom is my co-host, Matthew Dressing. Welcome, Matthew.
Welcome, Joanne. Good evening, Gary. Good evening, everyone. I'm Matthew Dressing, horticulturist and landscape designer and owner of Natural Affinity Garden Design. Natural Affinity is a landscape design and garden maintenance firm servicing Toronto and the Eastern GTA. Joanne and I enjoy hosting Down the Garden Path each week, bringing you interesting, relevant, and helpful topics to help you achieve a great garden. We learn right along with you from each other, from our research, and from the guests that join us here on the show. As always, we welcome your questions via social media, emails, or phone calls.
That's right. And we want to help you, like we said, we want to help you with your gardens. And we want to thank you for joining us here on the live version of Down the Garden Path, and let you know that you can always check out past shows of Down the Garden Path on your favorite podcast app if you're new to the show. So you can go ahead and search for Down the Garden Path. And we want you to also subscribe, and so that way you're notified of new content, and then you can please like, share, or leave us a comment. And we love it. We get lots of questions. We love the people that are live. We love interacting with you, but we know that it's not always convenient. So it's always good to know that you have that option to listen later.
That's right. That's right.
That's right. Happy August. Happy belated birthday. We might as well bring that up.
I was just going to say, we've been talking about it the last 3 weeks. How was your birthday yesterday?
My birthday was good. How was yours? Happy birthday.
Happy birthday. Thank you. And yes, mine was really good as well. Yes. So if you haven't heard the last few shows, and maybe you're a new listener tonight, Joanne and I share the same birthday. It's August 9th. So yesterday was our combined birthday. So.
That's right. Which was, and we found out for a fluke, a few years ago, right on the show.
Yeah. We've been doing it for like a year already.
I know. It was really one of those things. So it's very funny. And Matthew loves his birthday more than I like my birthday. I don't know. I'm not as about birthdays, but you seem to really enjoy them.
I love my birthday. It is all about just relaxing and eating whatever I want and doing whatever I want. I went down to the lake, social distance. We were all safe. I had ice cream cake. I played some video games. I did some reading, opened presents, saw family, and I absolutely love my day every year.
So that's good. That is good. I have to get better at enjoying my day. I don't know why.
I
But
was worried.
I'm not good at celebrating myself. So,
And did you work yesterday?
I did. I had one. I tried to stay in my office. I did have one, like 45-minute Zoom call with a client because that was the only time that they could meet. Was 3:30 on a Sunday, so it was kind of interesting. But hey,
Fair
it was
enough.
fine. So yes, that's all. I didn't stay. I didn't make because we made design changes and I didn't make them. I just left the office after the call was over, and I edited the design this morning. So
Well,
yeah,
that's
so I
good.
tried not to work. I have a pool. I did stay in the backyard for most of the day and read by the pool. I and went on Saturday. Went for coffee with a girlfriend, and yeah, so no, it was good. I
Good.
saw a
I was
couple
worried
other
you were going to be
girlfriends
working.
today. Yeah, pardon?
Sorry, I cut you off, but I thought I was worried you were going to be working all day long.
Oh yes, yes. No, no. Yeah, I resisted. I resisted.
That
So
is good. That is good.
yes, yes. So anyway, so here we are in the second week of August.
We are, and that means we're fresh into exploring a brand new topic here on Down the Garden Path. As each month, have a new theme every month to keep it kind of fresh and mix it up. And this month, we're talking all about deciduous trees and upright evergreens. And tonight, we're going to continue the discussion um, with a natural beauty in one of all of our favorites of every landscape, Japanese maples. So, if you want to join the conversation, perhaps you have a Japanese maple question, or you want to share what your favorite Japanese maple is, or maybe you're a listener somewhere far away who can't grow Japanese maples, whether it's too hot or too cold. We'd love to hear about that too. You can write us here at instudio101@gmail.com, and you can reach us anytime. Joanne at down the number 2earth.ca and Matthew at naturalaffinitydesigns.ca.
That's right. And I know it must be hard. We are lucky enough to be able to grow them here in our Zone 5B gardens.
We are.
And so, yes, it would be sad to know that there are people where it's too hot, or we know the people that it's too cold up in northern zones.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think there's some people who really love them, admire them in other people's gardens, or who've always wanted them, but who are afraid, right? I mean, I love to hear our listeners' viewpoints, right? Where they're afraid, they've heard they're tricky, they've heard they're iffy, and I think it's been one of those things that I feel like global warming has actually made positive because they were much
Finickier?
Thank you. Woo, that's a word. Say that
It
twice.
is.
When I first got into this industry, they were very fragile and very, but really they are doing great now. Like it's funny. It's I think our winters and have changed, are not as
Yeah.
cold, and certainly are not as cold for as long as they used to be. So yeah, so the Japanese maples are living longer.
Yes.
You will still get that sudden, unexplained death of a nice, lovely, mature tree. But that happens not just with Japanese maples, right? That happens with a lot of things. So,
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
you
And
know,
that was my how when I entered the industry too, right? They were so finicky and fragile, and oh,
hmm
don't plant that there, or oh my goodness,
hmm
you can only grow like these two or three reliably,
yeah,
etc. So
yeah. It was like nobody north of 7. So anybody in the GTA knows that
yeah,
Highway 7 is kind of not that north anymore. It used to be, but it was like, yeah. Oh no, if you're there, you're too close to Highway 7. You can't grow them. And now it's, yeah,
yeah,
not an issue.
no problem at all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So did we want to just jump right in, or do we want to go back
Um,
to our segment,
well, let's just do
or
quickly do our segment. Like, how is your how was the garden center?
yeah, garden center? It's actually been pretty slow.
Yes.
Things are definitely slowing down. The fall annuals are starting to arrive.
Oh,
Um, we're seeing
shush.
some grasses and some rudbeckias. Yes, we're seeing the odd mum roll in, and it is very, very warm, especially today. For the mums, it just kind of blows them through their cycle, their flower cycle. But the ones that we've gotten in are fairly tight budded. So just be careful if you're after some mums, depending on where you are. Yeah, so it's kind of slow. It's hydrangea season is in full swing.
Hmm.
People are still looking for Japanese maples, and lots of good, still fresh product coming out of some reliable farms. So
Okay. So do you think the reason there were some inventory shortages kind of mid-season, late to beginning of the season, do you think people were thinking that the reason why people aren't going anymore is because they're thinking you don't have anything, like that, not realizing that you are still getting stock?
um, that's
So,
it's possible. Just over here, it looks like you were going to say
no,
something
I
else.
just say because I know there were some, like the vegetables sold out. There were some shortages initially that were no fault of the garden centers.
Right.
There were transportation issues. There were, that kind of thing. Like the truck driver, literally truck drivers are taking contracts for medical and food
Yeah.
supplies instead of, was it important to have trees come, that type of thing. So definitely understandable. Orders were shortened because you didn't, garden centers, growers didn't even know if they'd be able to sell their product. So
Yeah.
they grew a little less. I mean, there were all these factors that were out of, the actual retail locations, purview,
Control.
really control. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so definitely, but now knowing that there are things, the regular things like the moms and things that are more seasonal,
Hmm.
we know more about what's going on, and yeah,
Yeah, yeah. For us, where we are, we kind of hit at this time. It is a kind of a little slower. I think we're kind of perceiving it as really, really slow, just because it was so busy. Even despite, like you were saying, with the shortages of things and the truck drivers not sending things, there were so many new gardeners that didn't have any clue as to when things were bought or the
hmm,
seasons of stuff. So I think just as it kind of everything hit stage two, stage three, and kind of reopened like the malls and stuff, and we were able to go up to 10 people, groups of 10 people in our area, it kind of started to reflect back to the normalcy of the garden center.
right,
Um, I think, and then that's where I perceived that it was suddenly like it was just, oh my gosh, it's so dead because it was just so busy despite all
yeah.
of that going on. But
Yeah. Well, I think it was one of the few places where people could go, right? So that
yes,
contributed, like a lot of new gardeners. The pandemic has spawned on a lot of new gardeners, which is
tons.
fabulous, and we're here to help you. So we're hoping we have some of new gardeners on the show
Mm-hmm.
or as listeners, and yeah, so you're right. So then once other stores started showing up and or opening, then people kind of went on to other things, right? That took their focus away from gardens.
Yeah. One of the ones that jumped to mind is like the fashion anywhere clothes. You couldn't really buy anything new for spring, and that spring summer when everything kind of shut down March, April when you're out there buying things or buying new,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Yeah. So anyways, but
Yeah,
yeah,
good.
no, I think we've had a great year. We're actually, because of all of it, we're way up on the year. So
Well, that's
um
good.
we're in a
Yeah.
really strong position. But
Yeah,
yeah,
good. Yeah, I mean, and it is good to know. I think people do think, I mean, certainly in July, that heat wave was not necessarily the
oof,
best time to plant.
no.
But now that we're winding down into August, it is still plenty of time to plant hydrangeas, anything that's, coming into flower now. That's a good time to kind of look at your gardens and see what isn't blooming. Like, do you have an area that nothing is blooming? Because now going to the garden center and seeing what's blooming, and that's what's going to bloom in your garden. So it's kind of a good time to visit a garden center,
Yes.
and everything is, maybe you have a fall garden. Mine, I think I definitely have. I wouldn't say this is fall, but late summer garden, because I'm hydrangea heavy, and so I have to kind of think about, oh, what was blooming in spring? Do I need another peony? Do I need to move some of my peonies were quite hidden, and not getting enough sun? So I have to kind of do some rearranging, and I want to plant some of those Yuki cherry deutzias, and so I have a bit more of a
Oh,
spring presence in my garden. So yeah, so it's a good time to kind of stop and really assess.
yes. Excellent point.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would say that's what's going on in my garden is I'm doing some assessing.
So I'm assessing, and I'm excited. I love Dutsias, and I love the Yuki cherry blossom. They're just so beautiful. I love the foliage when they're done. I love the fall color. I love just a cloud of flowers when she's in full bloom. So
Is it
I'm
just the
excited
Yuki
for it.
cherry one that has the fall color, or there? Because I know there's another one too.
There's
The
summer snowflake, and I think it does just kind of go more gold.
Oh yeah, I thought there was another one.
And there's Chardonnay pearls.
Yeah, and give me one more.
There's
One
Yuki
that still
snowflake.
had the cherry blossom.
That's the pink one, yeah.
Yes, but there still was another one that had it was cherry instead of cherry blossom. It was cherry something.
Oh, no, you know what? It's slipping
No.
my mind if I knew it at all.
Okay, cherry.
And maybe those were the ones that we carried, were the snowflake, the cherry blossom,
Okay.
and the Chardonnay pearls.
Oh, maybe it's snowflake. Hold on.
So
I'm wondering if the snowflake has the fall color.
one of them I thought had really really nice, and then the other one was just kind of meh,
Okay.
but normal. But,
Okay.
so while you look that up, we
Okay.
have 3 listener questions.
Woohoo!
So Monique writes in, "Good evening, Joanne and Matthew. My question may be somewhat related to trees. I'm trying to discourage raspberries from suckering into my backyard from a neighbor's yard.
Mm,
My thoughts is to plant a new variety of cedar hedge, baby bear, growing about 6 feet along the chain link fence to provide some afternoon/evening shade to the vigorous plants and perhaps limit the available moisture and discourage their spread. I live in zone 3. Your thoughts, ideas? I'm open to any suggestions. Thank you, Monique." I mean, yeah, limiting its resources, its sun and water, for sure will do it. How many hours, as you say, afternoon, evening? Is it more than the 6 hours? Is the raspberry still going to get its full sun that it likes, Monique? Like, is it going to get morning till like 2 or 3 and still be able to produce and stay vigorous? Not that with your efforts won't slow her down, but if she's still getting full sun and running at full power, um, you'll definitely slow her down, but maybe not to the degree that we'd like to, or we would like to see. I've also seen the raspberry canes go fairly far to sucker as well, right
mm,
at the base,
mhm.
but like a few feet over, and then up if they're really nice and vigorous and strong. Um,
Yeah. Mm, I think
yeah, it's
that's
a
a
tough.
tricky one.
It is a tricky one. Um, the only other thing, and I've had a few people do it. It's quite laborious. People have dug up on the edge of that area and put a large plate or piece of stone or something to kind of be buried underground to kind of deflect the roots to prevent them from going straight through. Hopefully, turn them down or turn them just straight back up into where they are. My brother-in-law, they moved into a house into Belleville, and they had one along their chain link fence, and it was spreading kind of on both sides of the fence. They didn't want it. They had to dig it up. They still wanted the raspberries because they have a big fruit and veggie area, but they put it into a raised garden bed and contained it that way. They've kind of bolstered it or barriered, sorry, it off by its own little thing. In its own little thing.
Mm, yeah, yeah.
Any other thoughts or
No, I mean, I think that definitely is it is a tricky one. I think maybe cutting,
yeah,
is really I mean, yeah, I mean, I think digging down and really between the fence, like whether it's wood, but you've kind of almost got to go more than like even a 2x4, right? You got to go a little bit deeper.
yeah,
So whether it is digging a trench, and even if you did the cedars, oh, there's my phone. Even if you did the cedars, having them away from the fence, but having it still a trench between the fence and your cedars, where you've kind of dug down and put something there to kind of prevent the the raspberry canes. But I worry though that the raspberries are still gonna it's gonna be harder to deal with them if the cedars are in the way. So part of me thinks
yeah,
I see where you're going about taking the nutrients away, but then I just think then they're going to start growing through your cedars, one damaging the cedars you've just spent money on, and and then it's harder to control them because now it's hard to cut them when they're in the middle of your cedars. So
Yeah, and then you're trapping into the cedars root zones, and then they don't perform. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, and
yeah,
that's kind of where I was going with the canes moving out so far as well, moving around things. Yeah, you kind of just have them coming through your cedars eventually.
yeah, yeah,
So
definitely.
Monique, hopefully that helps. But
Yeah.
let us know how it goes. If you want to discuss it further, for sure. I mean, you can write us here. And you can also write us Matthew at naturalaffinitydesigns.ca and Joanne at down the number two earth.ca. And maybe send us some pictures or some other things, and we can definitely discuss it further with you if you'd like.
Yeah, yeah, and if you're friends with the neighbor, I mean, digging them up
Yeah,
and putting them, offering to help them, maybe dig them up and putting them in containers. I know my
yeah,
son wanted to grow them, and I said they couldn't go in the garden, so we have them in containers, and they're doing quite well. So maybe it's a bit of a because I'm sure they might be driving them crazy too because they're spreading. So yeah, I'm
yeah.
sorry, nothing
They,
foolproof there, Monique.
no, they may go over and say, "Yeah, we kind of hate it anyways. We were going to rip it out."
Yeah,
But
yeah.
a next listener question, Gail has written in. Hello, great topic. Any ideas on how to get rid of the moths in my JM, I'm assuming Japanese maple tree? Thank you. Um, Jumping to mind for the pests and diseases, a moth doesn't quite come to mind, but there is a caterpillar that can go and attack um, the Japanese maples and kind of like around the leaves and things like that. So you might find that um, it's the moth is laying the eggs for those caterpillars, little caterpillars, to come out later. So I would take a look, Gail, just to see if you see anything kind of folding up. Outside of that, you kind of have to end up usually catching the moths with a trap of some sort or a sticky pad thing you hang in the tree,
Mhm.
or just kind of blast them away somehow with something exceptionally strong. But usually they're there to lay eggs or something else. So take a look, see if you see any curled leaves or little holes in the center of the leaves, and that would be the caterpillars are all wrapped up, or there's the holes they're actually out there feeding. And if you do find the caterpillars, you can usually use something either caterpillar specific, depending on where you are. If you're in the States, you've got some chemicals, but if you're here, you have BTK, the Bacillus thuringiensis bacteria. You spray on, they eat it, and they die. So
And that does that work for all, like even the one that's attacking the hydrangeas, the Annabelle hydrangeas? Would the BTK work for that as well?
yeah, from what I've read, it does. And then it's just a matter of timing. We don't ever really see the caterpillars. We kind of just see them folding it up. So the BTK usually lasts about 4 to 7 days. So I always suggest if they really wanted to go after it because someone's really frustrated or has lots of them and just wants to do something with it, watch as the leaves start to come out. And then as the new shoots grow and elongate, just start applying the BTK. And as they kind of crawl up and they start to fold the leaves together, they're going to come into contact with it, and it should knock them out before they finish cupping all their leaves together.
Okay.
But
Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gail. Sam writes in, hello, in the long run, who big and tall, how, sorry, Sam. How big and tall do Japanese maples trees get? Do they require pruning? Are they maintenance free? Thank you. Um, yes, big question. I think we're going to touch on all of that. The main pruning, there's going to be a range, and we're going to talk about it, Sam. You can get dwarf ones that are only like 3 feet tall, and you can get big upright ones who are 25 feet tall,
Mhm.
and just the same wide, both dwarf and the height. The pruning, not really. No, you every 2 to 4 years you can go in and you can prune for shape. You can remove any of the dead twigs that are on the inside.
Or crossing branches, like when
Yep.
it's young, you should really make sure because as they mature, that's when they start to kind of have damage, much like any other tree, really.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And exactly. I mean, it's just saying that kind of, if you're
Yeah.
familiar with pruning trees, it kind of swoops over them all.
Yeah.
Um,
Although I think that there's something about the branching, like Japanese maples are beautiful, but their mature branches are uniquely beautiful too. Like, you know what I mean? Like like the shape of them and the layout of them also add to them different than your regular standard, whether it's tree.
Yeah, yeah. As I say, your Japanese ivory silk lilac or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's where every 2 to 4 years they recommend pruning. If you want to have that nice shape, going in late summer when there's minimal sap flow, and pruning back into that nice scaffolding of interesting branches and arching stems, depending on the type that you end up having and the shape or that bonsai look that you, if you're interested in going that way. What do you say about maintenance free?
No, I think they do need it. They do. I think it's
Yeah,
fairly easy and straightforward maintenance.
yeah,
But there is stuff. We'll talk about the winter protection that you need to do the first few couple of
yeah,
years. Um, they do need a bit more water.
yeah.
So yeah, I wouldn't say they're high maintenance
No,
necessary, but I would say that there is maintenance.
especially when they're young. Especially
Yes.
when they're young.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Sam, hopefully that kind of quickly answers your question, and hopefully we're going to have lots more information for you in the next 30 minutes as we continue with the show. And we have like four more listener questions as we
Oh
try to
wow.
get to.
Okay.
There are people waiting to pick our brains. Um, Stan writes in, "Hi, I don't know a lot about Japanese maples, but do they come in different color leaves? Just wondering. Thank you." And most certainly, Stan, they are going to come in anything from a green to a dark red black to green and white and pink to green and yellow, green and orange. There are all sorts of different colored Japanese maples. They have different leaf shapes. There's over 5 common different leaf shapes for the Japanese maple. And then the one thing that we love about Japanese maples is that the different cultivars and varieties will have different leaf colors at different times of the year. One of them that pops to mind is, for example, a Rudo Nishiki. So it's a fast growing upright Japanese maple. She'll grow about 15 to 10 feet, or 15 tall, 10 feet wide. And she gets these, like if you're familiar with the dappled willow, she gets that green, pink, and white as she emerges, slowly fading to more green, but still a little bit of hint in white from spring through summer. And then in the fall, she lights up with orange and reds all over. Orange Dream is another one. She's orange in the spring, yellow green in the summer, and then a bright golden yellow in the fall. So you get these different seasons, especially
Hmm.
amongst not only the fact that they also all have different colors as well.
That's right. And I think for anyone who's familiar, super familiar, um, the red ones, the burgundy ones, the Japanese blood goods, the emperors tend to be the more quote unquote common ones.
Yes.
But so that people know, and it's almost, I worry that it's almost going to become the new weeping mulberry, where every second house on the street or every house on the street has a burgundy Japanese maple. So it's if that's the case, if you love them and your neighbor on both sides of you has a burgundy one, then that's a perfect reason to look at one of the other ones. A green waterfall that goes, is a beautiful green, lime green with a really interesting shape, and then goes orange in the fall, or really kind of investigate. And fall is a good time to do that because you really get to see the fall color.
Yes.
I know you
Exactly.
at the garden center, right? You usually are selling a lot of the fall ones that are in fall, a unique fall color because people can actually see it.
Yes.
So yeah, so that's good to know.
Yeah.
What else do we have?
Ray writes in another Japanese maple question. Hello, all. Does wind affect where I grow my Japanese maple? Yes, it does.
Hmm.
And Ray, they're sorry, I just got caught with another point for what you just said. Um, yeah, right. They're naturally understory trees. So they like to grow amongst other trees and larger shrubs and somewhat have some protection. Most of them in general are also naturally just like a partial shade creature. And then going back to our leaf color question or talking, the darker ones tend to be able to, and not that the dark green ones can't either, but more of the darker colors can tolerate a little bit more of the heavier sun or all day long sun as well. But yeah, they do like to be protected from the wind. And that's kind of what we're talking about with the maintenance um, question as well, is they like to be protected for those first 3 to 4 years from a heavy wind. So you do definitely want to be wrapping it in the winter. You want to have some stakes. You don't want to wrap it so that it's hugging the tree itself. You want to build a barrier, some stakes outside of the canopy, staple some burlap or something that can break the wind. And we usually recommend to going up about 6 to 12 inches above the top just to help break the wind. You don't need to cover the top. You want the snow and everything to get in there, but you want to break the wind over the top. And yeah, you do want to protect it from the wind. And that comes into part of the maintenance with the watering as well, especially when she's young. You know, those we get some good sized trees. They would have much larger root systems in the ground had they grown to that height naturally. So they have a smaller root system. So we do want to keep up, make sure that they're evenly moist to help deal with some of the
Right.
winds as well.
All right. And we'll talk, we'll give you some more details in a minute about the winter production.
Yes. Hannah writes in, hello, I have some limbs growing out of the top of my Japanese maple tree. Should I let them grow or should I cut them? Thank you for your answer. Um, I'm kind of confused. I kind of picture some like heat stress going on with Hannah's tree, the limbs growing out of the top of the Japanese maple. We're not too sure. I'm not too sure. Maybe Joanne, you have a better
No, we might need to see a picture
feeling.
to know that, and also the age of the tree. If it's a very, is it something that didn't get any leaves like left over from the spring? It never grew leaves, right? And maybe a section has died, or like you said, is that just happened over the winter, over the summer with the heat, where it's kind of died back, or new branches. So yeah, some of that's a little tricky to tell,
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
diagnose
So
over the show.
Hannah, if you have a picture, you could take a quick picture with your phone and in studio101 at gmail.com and we could see the picture. You could also send it again to either one of our personal accounts, Matthew at naturalaffinitydesigns.ca or Joanne at down to the number two earth.ca, and we could take a look and we can help you that way. But yeah, as long if it's dead wood, Hannah, you can always cut it out. You can always cut that dead wood back to just outside the either branch union or the nearest live bud, and it should be okay. Yeah. So thank you for that question, Hannah. Um, oh, I think we just got something weird here. Anyways, let's keep going. There was kind of a double question. I think it was just a
Okay.
read forward. Jane is writing in, hello, excellent show tonight. A friend of mine told me that I have white flies on my tree. Do you know anything about them and how to get rid of them? Thank you very much. Um, a common little problem with the little white flies, usually just an insecticidal soap should wipe them away. If you need a little something more, if it's not too windy, you could also use the sticky traps, but that's generally more for indoors. So just a good insecticidal soap should be able to wipe them away and break that life cycle for you, Jane.
Excellent.
Yeah, thank you. And then we have Yola. The question of the evening is, are these trees expensive to purchase? They sound really beautiful. And yes, they can be expensive.
They can be. I mean, they are more the more mature they are, right? The more
Correct.
expensive they can be. And that doesn't even mean height. So I think I try to explain that to clients because sometimes the tree comes and it's only, 4 feet tall. And they're like, why did I spend, several $100s on that? But if you look at the trunk, because they are all varieties for the most part are pretty slow growing.
Mm-hmm.
So you really can kind of judge the age and the price. So sometimes you can have a really tall one that stem is like as thick as your pinky, and and you'll find them at like big box stores or grocery stores, and you're like, wow, I got a really good deal. Well, it's very young. It's going to take a lot of babysitting to get it to be a mature tree. Or you spend more and have something that's, definitely a much thicker trunk and much more already starting to get like an interesting branching habit and trunk formation, and that they would, be much, they will be more money, but they will, you know, be more mature.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
that's
you're
it.
so you're paying more for the age than like like in typical other trees, with the more expensive ones or the taller ones. With Japanese maples, it's not necessarily the case. You're paying more for the variety, the rarer varieties, the slower growing ones, because it takes a long time for the grower to grow them. So they've invested, more time in getting them to that point. So there's a few other, so it's not as cut and dry, but
Yeah,
yes, I would say they are a jewel in your garden. So definitely a focal point.
for sure. Yeah. Wow. So all of our listener questions, which are great questions, and thank you everyone for writing in. But we've taken us to the last 20 minutes of the show.
I know.
Wow.
Well, let's talk about fertilizing. So that is something I don't do.
Yeah,
Fertilizing our Japanese maples.
that's right. And you know what? When it comes to fertilizing your Japanese maples, less is definitely more.
Okay.
They don't really need too much. They do prefer more of a potassium and a little bit of nitrogen, and they prefer it to be over a slow release, if anything. So
Okay.
when you get too liquid, it's too, it can cause some uncharacteristic growth to the cultivar. So it can kind of give you like the bursts of growth that are like water sprouts or not quite as weeping as the rest, or it would naturally have been. Um, so yeah, so the liquid tends to cause weird growth and it is too much too quickly. So just a nice slow release, or like you and I often say, just a nice compost, a nice rich compost,
Hmm.
or a nice mulch that's already partially decomposed to give you those nutrients and just a nice slow release. You're only if you ever have to feed it or amend the soil in some way that is going to give it food. You're only going to do it in spring and early summer, and then lastly, fertilizing actually can also, if you over fertilize it, you can cause the variegated varieties, things like the Orodo Nishiki that I had mentioned earlier, to revert back to one of its parents, or lose temporarily or permanently all of its variegation.
Mm.
So just another side effect of
Yeah.
giving too much food.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's more important to water them deeply, and that
Yes,
they require a deep watering, not a quick drop with the hose, like leaving that, the hose on low and leaving it on for an hour, so that they really want a good deep soak. And I think that is more of the maintenance. I know someone asked earlier about the high maintenance of it, is more the watering, making sure it gets enough water,
yeah.
more than worrying about fertilizing.
That's right. And most of them, if not all of them, prefer a well drained soil as
Mm.
well. So nice, moist, but well drained. They don't want to sit in a bowl of clay and water or something that's really thick and chunky either.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. For
And
sure.
yeah, and you've talked. I mean, the example of the trees, the stories you tell about the water bags and the trees
Mhm.
on your yard is just testament to your point, right? You can just see a well watered tree on your yard versus everywhere else. That's just the stunting that the lack of proper watering can cause to plants, and how
Mhm.
much maintenance it relieves by properly watering things.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think it's also having a nicely watered, deeply watered plant all the season, really helps to get it through the winter as well. So I think that's something that you have to realize, that you're not just watering it for this moment in time, for this week in
Right.
July or this week in August, but we want to really get water down to the roots, so that the plant can have water and moisture drawing up all winter. So
That's
that's
right.
why we really want that deep watering.
Yeah, yeah. Everyone tends to forget that the wind is just as drying and as desiccating as a full day's worth of sun, and the wind really picks up in those that fall month when we want that water for that winter to be stored to take it through the
Hmm.
winter and those times where things aren't available. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much fertilizing. What else should we
Well,
going on?
pruning, like I think the odd pruning, the light pruning when there's some dead in the spring. You
Hmm.
you want to try to do it late in the spring though, because I've seen, like, this was a year where, some of it looked dead until way into beginning of June, and then poof, there were leaves. So
Yeah.
so it's definitely not something you want to prune too early in the season.
No.
Think of it's similar, like you mentioned, to other maple trees, in the sense that there is a sap.
Yes.
So you definitely want to do it more in the summer when the sap isn't running, because it literally, I've heard like they literally will like bleed to death almost, right? Like the sap.
Yeah. If you hit it right at the right time, there's so much that it could lose that it could,
Yeah.
yeah, really hurt itself or
Yeah,
die.
for sure. And
Yeah.
I think while they're young, they are easy to maintain yourself as long as you're using, sharp instruments like a sharp pruner and cleaning it in case you're not contaminating it with something else. But mine is about 14 years old now. My one, I have three, and my one large red one is 14 years old. And I've had it like a professionally pruned twice. So it was several years ago. It was really just not looking, like the right shape and needed some more circulation in it. And then it's actually in the corner of our backyard by the pool. And so last year, I think it was last year, it might have been the year before, the branches were like, we were literally having to like try to walk under it to get around the pool. And finally my husband said, okay, we can't keep doing this like that. We've got to take this big branch off. And it was such a big branch that I was really worried about doing it ourselves. So I
Mm.
called my arborist and had him professionally shape it, and so it's still there, like but we were able to do that. So I think if you put in 15 years babying the tree, 14 years, 12 years, it is worth. Um, Especially if you like, mine was probably a small tree when I first put it in, and it's very protected in where it is, but it was definitely worth having a professional just sculpt it and make sure it was pruned properly. So, it kind of it's not something you have to do every year by no means whatsoever. I'm thinking maybe two or three times in the tree's lifetime, because I think even now it is now so nicely shaped that I think it's going to be fine growing. Like, I don't know. So now I've had it pruned twice, and I don't know that I'm going to need it to be pruned again, really,
Yeah.
unless something happens. So yeah, so it's not, I know when people we hear, they think, oh, every year I'm gonna have to pay someone, and
Oh no.
that's definitely not the case.
That's right.
It's like getting a good haircut, right? Once you get it, kind of, sort of, I know you have to keep getting your haircut anyway.
I don't.
Yes. Sorry for using that analogy. But anyway, so yeah, so pruning. But hold off, because I know I had a client who actually doesn't live far from me. I could walk to her house, and she had a weeping and Abi Shadira, kind of more of an umbrella Japanese maple that I designed for her many years ago. Very mature, but still only about 4 feet tall. And she's like, Joanne, there's nothing. Like, do I need to prune all this dead out? And I said, just leave it. And this was like the end of May. I said, just let's leave it. Let's give it a couple more
Oh,
weeks.
I've stalled out here on Zoom.
Oh, okay. You froze out. There you are. Um, so I went back a couple weeks in.
I don't know if you can hear me.
Oh, I can hear you. I know, yeah, you're frozen, but I can hear you. Um, Gary, can everybody hear me okay?
Well, yes, we can
Oh,
hear you fine, and
Okay,
Matt.
good.
can you hear me?
Yep.
You were stalled out at. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So yeah,
Mhm.
and I was like, a couple weeks later, I went by and it had completely leafed out. Like, so it went from nothing and at the end of May to like third week in June, so yeah. So don't be rushing to do anything in the spring.
Yes.
So um yeah, and so the biggest,
Agreed.
well, we
Now, what
want to,
about winter care?
yeah, let's
So,
quickly cover winter care, and then we'll maybe talk about a couple of our favorite varieties. So winter care, it's, I think, making sure that the summer and fall it gets enough water deeply.
mhm,
And then, like you were mentioning, is that wind protection. So especially in the first few years, and that's really just wooden stakes. And there's often these Japanese maple tree kits, even winter protection kits, right? That garden centers will stock, where it's
mhm,
it's all together. So you've got four stakes, you've got burlap, you've got ties, and so you're literally, you don't like, the burlap does not have to touch the tree. They can be outside of the tree, the drip line, right? And you're just staking the stakes outside of the tree, and then you're wrapping the burlap around the wood. So there's snow, water, everything can kind of land on the tree. You're really just protecting the wind, right?
yep, yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, I think I'm cutting in and out. So I couldn't tell you where you just ended there.
Okay, sorry. Um, yeah, so that's the biggest extent of the maintenance. I think it's the downside of having the tree maybe right by the front door is that then you have to have that, wrapped in burlap by the front door for the whole winter. So that's sometimes the location. Talk to your designer or think about where the tree goes. If they're in the backyard in a more protected corner, maybe they might not need wrap. Like I still would wrap them the first year, probably the second year. But if it is in a more protected area, then maybe that's enough.
That's right.
Yeah, so that is the biggest part of winter protection. I know I have a picture, and I kind of email when I do my newsletter. I email my clients. Now's the time, get your kit, and now's the time to do it. You want to wait. You don't want to do it too early. You want to wait till the leaves fall, and then you gonna keep it on until the thing starts to warm up in the spring.
That's right.
Mhm. So,
I think you got it.
yeah, excellent. So I have four more questions.
There's four more questions. I
Okay, well,
took the
I'm gonna
signal to.
quickly. So I have a burgundy Japanese maple, a bloodgood. You can check my Instagram feed. I think a couple months ago I posted a picture of my 14-year-old tree, so you can see how beautiful it is. And I have a gold moon, yellow one, and I call it a
Ooh,
butterfly one, but it's that variegated green and white one with the pink edges that you talk about. So what is that more of an official Japanese name that you gave it?
no, no, I think that is also a cultivars, the
Okay.
butterfly, and then the Orodo Nishiki. And I think yours is just a little bit more of a finer, thinner leaf, like the fingers
Yes.
aren't quite as long. And then the Orodo is more, it's a little bit bigger. It's a more of like the blood good kind of shape. It's a little smaller, but it's that broader, fatter looking leaf.
Yes, and you do have, like with anything variegated, it does try to revert a bit. So I have to kind of go in and try to remove, the bigger leaves just to keep it small. Both of them need a little bit of love. I actually have, I said I got an estimate from my arborist to come and give them. So I've had them both for a number of years, and they've never been touched. So there's some dead and some pruning that needs to happen. So yeah, so those are my three.
Nice.
I know Tami Kayama, if I said it right. And a lot of people like the weeping one with more of the cut leaf burgundy. My girlfriend Nancy, who I've mentioned on the show before, she has 12 Japanese maples in her garden, and she says that's one of the hardiest ones. So yeah, so that's if you're concerned about the investment and you want to make sure it's going to be super hardy. Then it's a weeping cut leaf Japanese maple, Tamakiyama.
Yes. Does it? Yeah, that's a great one.
Yeah,
That's
yeah, for sure.
definitely one of the more popular ones at the garden center as well.
Excellent.
Another,
Excellent. Yeah, so let's do this quick fire round. What do you
yeah, I
think?
was gonna say another
Okay.
group of questions. All right. Breda writes in, "Hi, are these trees actually from Japan? If so, how do they survive our Canadian winter?" And yes, they are. There's a number of species specifically to that Acer group of Japanese maples, but we see Acer palmatum. There are some Korean and Chinese maples, and since like forever. We've historically been looking since like the late 1700s, early 1800s. They've been breeding them from all over the region. How do they survive our winter? Is that Japan actually has quite a wide range of temperate zones,
Hmm.
climate zones. So they grow anywhere from zones 5 to 8, sometimes 9, depending on the zone. But so we have their upper range of the Japanese maples, and we are also, at least where we are here in Canada, we are a zone 5. So anywhere from zone 5 to 8 in North America, you're going to find similar conditions somewhere in the beautiful country of Japan.
Hmm.
So that's
Yes.
how they survive.
Yep. And our winter protection, I think, is mimicking the understory,
Yeah,
ness of the protection that they have there. So, yeah.
that's exactly it. Yeah.
Hmm.
Carla writes in, "Hi, just tuned in, so you may have already answered this question. If I choose to plant one of these trees here in Toronto, is it okay to plant it in the fall or should I wait until next spring?" No, you're go right ahead, Carla. Again, just what we were saying, and you've probably tuned in by then. Just make sure that you're protecting it for the winter. Adequate deep moisture watering all the way through. Make sure that you wrap it and protect it from that wind, and then just again opening it up as she starts to wake up in the early spring. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, a good if you're going to purchase one, especially a mature one, then think about getting one of those tree bags, because that's a great way
Yeah,
to water. Once a week, and you're watering it really deeply, right into the ground freezes, and that's really going to help the tree.
that's right. Joyce writes in, hello, Joanne and Matthew. Love your show. I'm going to be planting a Japanese maple in my yard this coming fall. I have both sun and shade areas. What is the best location to plant?
Mm.
Naturally, almost all of them are a partial shade creature. However, Joyce, as you get into the darker colors like the emperors, the blood goods, the takiwamas, those purple and red leaves, and as well as any of the green varieties with a nice darker green leaf, they will take the full sun. They'll definitely take the partial shade, no problem. And again, being partial shade creatures, a lot of them will tolerate some, I wouldn't say heavy shade, but a very bright indirect shade, not cave shade or not where none of your other plants are going to grow in the shade, but the edge of a tree, or again, just kind of mimicking its natural environment in amongst other things. But a bright indirect or dappled shade would also work for you too.
Excellent. Yeah.
Thank you, Joyce. And then lastly, we have Denise. Denise, a wealth of information tonight regarding Japanese maples. Thank you for the advice. Always enjoy your show and the tips. Stay healthy, please. We will do our best, and
We
thanks for
will.
tuning in.
Yes.
Thanks, Denise.
Yeah, and I want everybody to think about, I know it seems counterintuitive when there are so many different colors and palettes of Japanese maples, that there are some really lovely green ones.
Yes.
They look very, the textures are very different. The actual green is very like lime colored or deeper green, so it adds another really cool texture to the garden. And they have beautiful, usually orange, right? Usually orange, beautiful fall color. So green waterfall. There's again, there's too many names to for us to pick and name all of the Japanese maples. But if you want something that's just unique, or maybe it's a gift or a memory tree or something like that, then please also consider the green ones. I know in the spring they never sell, right? In the spring, everybody buys up
Yeah.
all the red ones, but in the fall, when they go orange, everybody buys them. So because they are beautiful, but they are beautiful green as well. I have a neighbor who has one. And it's like short and almost like an umbrella, like it's all the way around. It's pruned really well, and oh my goodness, it is just beautiful all summer, and it's green, and it's just a beautiful tree.
Yeah.
So yeah, so think green, everybody, too. I mean, I think that's just a great thing.
Yeah. No, I agree. I want the green ones are some of my favorite ones. And one of the ones that I like to note is Sangu Kaku. It's an upright, gets 20 by 15, about 10 feet after about 10 years or so. But it's green spring and summer, yellow and orange in the fall. But the cool thing is, it's also called the coral bark maple.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I was just thinking about
Yeah.
the coral bark one. Now
And
I've
it's
heard that one isn't
bright
super
coral.
hardy, but
She's
it
more zone 6 or 7 for sure for
yes,
us.
yes, for sure. What I love about that one is my wholesale nursery that I buy from has some beautiful ones, but it's like the little stems, like what is it? Is it the petioles? Like the leaf
Yep.
attaches to the branch?
Yeah.
They're red. And
Yeah.
so because the coral bark is a bit more coral color, and they're really a beautiful shade, almost more yellow even than green, this time of year anyway. But yes, beautiful, and I love the habit of it. I know Nancy convinced me. Now I had a client I was delivering a tree for today, and I was there on Friday trying to tag and trying to deduce which tree was I going to send them, and she talked me out of the coral bark. But it is beautiful.
It
It
is
is. So
beautiful.
anybody is in has a higher zone, um, yes, go for it.
Yeah, exactly. Madden has written in, hello, and what is bucket planting? I heard of this
Ooh.
for planting trees. Is this something I should consider? And what is it exactly? And you know what? I have never heard of the term bucket planting in our area, Madden. So
No.
we might have to do some research and
Yes.
get back to you for
Bucket
sure.
planting as I quickly Google that.
I was
Where did you
gonna
hear?
say,
Where did you hear that? Uh,
yeah, is it literally just container gardening with buckets, or
uh,
is it something bigger? We're not sure. So maybe
yeah,
Madden.
it looks like it's a veggie thing. Quickly, but Madden,
Oh,
yeah,
perfect.
we'd love some information on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Lots of questions. And I think we've done a past
good
show on
questions.
Japanese maples too, haven't we, Matt? I
I
think if people
believe we
look
have.
through our archives, we have done a past show. We definitely will cover in like our September, our fall in the garden episodes from previous years. We will definitely cover the winterizing. So if you missed that and you wanted a bit more detail, we will definitely past October or November in the garden episodes. We will have covered that. So definitely we love hearing from you. Thank you so much. Everybody's been such a great part of the show in the last few months. We are just loving all the new listeners and all the listener questions. Really makes our day, doesn't it?
It does. We just love interacting with you and hearing
Mm-hmm.
what's going on in your yards and helping
Yeah.
you out
Yeah,
with
and
the
loving
things
that
you
you're
do.
asking questions of what we chose to talk about. Like that's even more. It shows that there is an interest in what we're coming up with. So that kind of helps us too, right?
Yeah,
So yeah, and because trees is such a big topic, like anything gardening is a big topic. So we did our best to kind of whittle down some what we thought were really timely and interesting things. To break up the conversation, and you guys have really rewarded us the last few months with the themes that we've picked, and we picked them months ago, like last November we picked them, and they're still totally pre-COVID and everything, but you're still finding them resonate with you, so that is wonderful. And we all have trees, and we all love trees, and we know the investment and the value that they bring to our homes and yards. So anything we could do to help you keep them looking healthy, we're happy to do.
that's right. And not only about our your trees, but anything that has to do with
Hmm.
your landscape or containers or any of your questions. So
That's right.
don't forget, you can always rate us here in Studio 101 at gmail.com. As Joanne said, there's so much information in our past podcasts. So don't forget to Google Down the Garden Path podcast on your favorite podcast app. And outside of the show, if you have questions, maybe we're not on, or maybe we didn't cover it, you can reach us off the air at Down the Garden Path Podcast on Facebook and Instagram. And you can always reach us on our personal websites and our social media as well. You can find me, Matthew, at naturalaffinitydesigns.ca. And naturalaffinitydesigns.ca has all my social media links, etc. there. And Joanne, we can find you at
Down2earth.ca with the number 2. So if you check out that website, and then you'll see all my social media, my Instagram, my Twitter, my Facebook page. But of course, yes, we definitely would love more of you to participate with us and chat with us in our private Facebook group. So we'd love to see you there.
That's right. So thank you everyone again for tuning in live to Down the Garden Path. Monique, Gail, Sam, Stan, Ray, Hannah, Jane, Yola, Brenda, Carla, Joyce, Denise, Madden. Thank you for your questions. Thank you, Gary, for helping us produce this wonderful show. And thank you again for tuning in here live Down the Garden Path on Reality Radio 101.
Thank you for listening to Down the Garden Path with your hosts, Joanne Shaw and Matthew Dressing, right here on Reality Radio 101.